estava aí.
Só avisa ela, eu não tive aqui porque...
Not mine either, because my mother and father were they didn't teach us. As a result, they only spoke English when they were Bible scholars.
It's interesting to hear.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Inscreva-se on spirituality and healing. I work in the WCC and my colleague Bingo works in the Rhythm Federation. He's Brazilian. I work in health and healing issues, and then he works on spirituality issues, interreligious dialogue. So when we used to have discussions, and then I heard that the World Council Assembly, the General Assembly is going to be held in Brazil. We were discussing the great opportunities provides us to delve into this very key issue of relationship between spirituality and healing, especially in the context of Brazil. So I am very privileged to be able to work with Ingo and with my colleagues here. I should just briefly introduce you the resource persons. The Venerable Águida is a leader of the Umbanda religion. It's Afro-Brazilian religion, which is very prominent, very important religion in this region, which has got input from various traditions, from both the indigenous tradition of Brazil, of Afro-Brazilian traditions, and also European traditions. You will hear more about it, but it's an important experience of the people of Brazil and different parts of the world. And healing is a very important component of the practice of this religion. We have also Dr. Lee Hong Yung. He is a theologian from Korea who has, as a missiologist, and has extensively worked with indigenous people and has got a deep understanding of shamanistic traditions. This is the healing traditions of Islam in Korea. Of course, and Dr. Ingo Wolfers, who has done extensive studies and coordinated extensive studies in an interreligious perspective, in a global, also from a global perspective. He has worked in Geneva over the last few years. Before that, he is still a professor in a university in Brazil. He's a theologian and has done a lot of work on spiritualism and healing. We are really privileged to have you as resource persons, and I am here myself just to moderate and to facilitate this discussion. First of all, let us close our eyes and keep a moment of silence. O Creator God, give us wisdom and help us to deepen our understanding in spirituality. Thank you. Now I would the pattern of the workshop is actually we would have short presentations from each of the resource persons. And then we go into first group discussions, and then we can get back and people can actually come out with questions and comments and experiences. We would like to probably you to go into small groups and share among yourselves. And we are actually dealing with some critical issues here on healing and May Águida to give us.
Boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone.
É uma satisfação estar aprendendo.
It's a great pleasure to be here, contributing and learning.
Procurarei ser objetivo nas minhas colocações,
I'll try to be objective in my talk
porque a nossa caminhada, apesar de 32 anos,
because our walk, in spite of 32 years
nessa existência,
in this existence,
ainda está começando. Você sempre se aprende todos os dias.
is still beginning because we learn every day.
Estarei logo após à disposição para perguntas.
I will be at your disposal after my talk to questions.
Um breve resumo sobre a religião umbandista no Brasil.
A short summary of Umbanda religion in Brazil.
Atualmente, a religião umbandista já é citada como tal, pois desde a sua fundação em 1908, vem reunindo um número significativo de adeptos.
Nowadays, Umbanda religion is already cited as such because since its start in 1908, it's been gathering a significant number of followers.
Se expande principalmente no Brasil, mas já há alguns anos, países estrangeiros possuem seguidores e locais de cultos responsáveis pela formação de médiuns de Umbanda e pela sua divulgação.
It's been spreading especially mainly in Brazil, but also in many other countries where there are centers responsible for teaching and helping mediums, people to become mediums.
Caminhada lenta, mas firme, a Umbanda se mostra como uma religião que ensina, em sua essência, a fé, a humildade e a caridade.
Slowly but steadily, Umbanda is a religion that shows, in essence, faith, humbleness, and charity.
E que seres encarnados podem se comunicar com desencarnados e vice-versa.
And that incarnate spirits can communicate with disincarnate spirits and vice versa.
Que a natureza é divina e deve ser preservada como um todo.
That nature is divine and must be preserved as a whole.
Que a cura para males da alma é possível.
That cure to the problems of the soul is possible.
Através do trabalho conjunto entre o médium preparado e a atuação direta de espíritos ou orixás apropriados para executar aquela tarefa.
It's possible through the action together between mediums, developed mediums, trained mediums, and entities, spiritual entities, which are ready to do this task.
Que através da calma e da paz interior se encontra a felicidade.
That through calm and inner peace, it's possible to find happiness.
Mas, principalmente, que Deus é único e que só Ele capacita a vida em todo o universo.
But mainly that God is unique, is only one, and only God can make life possible in all the universe.
A teologia umbandista se firma no espiritismo, no culto afro-ameríndio e no catolicismo.
Umbanda theology theology is based on Spiritism, Afro-Amerindian cult, and Catholicism.
Hoje também uma corrente oriental está presente na Umbanda.
Nowadays, also an Oriental current is present, strongly present in Umbanda as well.
Os ensinamentos dos espíritos e dos orixás são passados através de médiuns incorporados.
The teachings from the spirits and the orishas are passed through incorporate mediums,
Mostrando que o ciclo da vida e da morte é contínuo para a evolução do espírito.
showing that the cycle of life and death is continuous for the evolution of the spirit.
Este é o processo da reencarnação,
This is the process of reincarnation,
onde morrer é deixar a vida da carne para viver a vida do espírito.
where dying is to leave the life of the flesh, to leave the life of the spirit.
E nascer é deixar a vida espiritual para entrar na vida da carne.
And being born is leaving the spiritual life to enter the life of the flesh, human life.
Tendo a oportunidade de continuar a aprender através das vivências terrenas.
Having the opportunity to continue learning through life experience on earth.
Que amar a Deus sobre todas as coisas e ao próximo como a si mesmo é que poderá fazer a paz e a felicidade nas duas principais dimensões mais conhecidas, a astral e a terrena.
And that loving God above all things and loving our fellow human beings as ourselves is what will make it possible to make peace and happiness possible in our planet.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And what we will do is that we will continue with the presentations. Now I invite Reverend Lee to give his presentation. We have got actually, well, this is a good response. We unfortunately have not prepared for so many people. We have made 40 copies. So if you can share there's a text that he has prepared. If you can share one, you can share so it will help you to also follow what is.
There are a few reasons why I prepared my papers, because since I'm dealing with Korean shamanism, I need to use Korean language as Koreans pronounce it. And then secondly, as you know, my English is kimchi English. So kimchi English sometimes not so communicable with others. So you may read my text and please understand more precisely what I want to say. My eyesight is getting worse. I had to use my glasses, but unfortunately I lost my glasses in the morning. I lost the glasses. Then I go somewhere. I tried to find out, but I couldn't find it.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
The Korean Holy Spirit will empower my eyesight so that I can read. Next up, please. The title of my presentation will be Shinmyeong.
Try to share it, and we can make it available at the information desk tomorrow morning.
Which one? 50 or 41? Which information desk? Building 50, building
before I start to read my presentation, it's better for you to read or listen from me about the key Korean glossary, which is the shamanistic language. So first of all, 신명. 신명 means life-giving divine spirit in Korean shamanism. And 민중, perhaps many of you know 민중, the socio-politically oppressed, economically marginalized, culturally alienated people in Korea. The Han means a historically accumulated anger, sorrow, resentment, bitterness of Korean 민중 people. The 한풀이 means resolving Han. And there is also language in Korean national religion. 부천개벽 means opening a new world. And then 해원공사 means work of resolving Han. And 천지공사 means work of the heaven and the earth, the universe. Then 단 means cutting Han. And 기 means moving force of all living creatures. You may have heard this language in Chinese pronunciation, qi. And 동학 and 진산, these are the names of Korean national syncretistic indigenous religions, which have been developed since the end of 9th century, when Korea faced a critical geopolitical national turmoil. 신바람 is divine wind. The gut is the Korean shamanistic ritual for unholy, resolving Han. Any theologian should recognize herself as a complete human being in complete personal, social, cultural, political, spiritual circumstances, not subjectless, contextless, historyless, interpretless. In this sense, a genuine hermeneutic consensus would be achieved through the critical perspectives offered by the voices of the victims who are doing their own contextual theology of healing, reconciliation, and transformation under the shadows of the hermeneutics of death. The value conflicts and power complexes which distort reason and religion, the world and the Christian messages into ideologies of domination, causing broken and wounded heart and bodies, can only be recognized and overcome if we take seriously the questions, criticisms posed by the victims of domination. In this light, without the understanding of the heart of the 민중, any missiological reflection on healing, reconciliation, and transformation cannot arrive at the total meaning of liberation and salvation in the Korean situation. This is because the Han situation exists in the place where liberation, salvation springs up, and at the points of time when the journey toward liberation and salvation begins. In other words, the Han experience of the 민중 in a societal infrastructure can be an infrastructure of God's mission in history, which reveals God's economy in fulfilling the creation and liberating and sanctifying the Han-ridden realities. In Korean history, the victims of domination, the 민중, have expressed and articulated their visions of healing, reconciliation, and transformation through people-centered religiosities such as shamanism, 동학, 증산, etc. The oppressed living realities in the universal structure and a total liberation and salvation of the present world, that is 부천개벽, through 해원공사 and 천지공사, a process of 한풀이. This 한풀이 process was clearly revealed in shamanism and 동학 and 증산 traditions, in which shamanism takes the archetypal role. In order to understand Han Korean, it is important to understand the Han experience of the Korean Minjung as a double-sided character. On the one side, there is an anger, resentment, bitterness, and grief, and broken heartedness, which can never be healed, reconciled, and transformed because of the hopeless and helpless situations. On the other, there is a raw energy of struggle for healing, reconciliation, transformation. This two-sided nature of Han is, in my view, integrated in the dialectical and dialogical process of Han and Dan, that is Han Puri. In this process of Han Puri, Dan is the antithesis of Han. The synthesis of Han and Dan is to be repossessed by or to receive Shinmyeong through the restoration of Ki. In other words, Han Puri is a dialectical and dialogical integration of Han and Dan toward the state of achieving Shinmyeong, or the restoration of Ki. In my view, the total meaning of Han Puri is crucially related to Shinmyeong view, that is shamanistic view of reality of the Korean people. In the Korean mind, the term Shinmyeong is deeply connected to the reality of life and the volition of life itself. In Korean shamanism studies, Shinmyeong is differentiated into individual and communal. Individual Shinmyeong refers to states when the shaman alone is possessed by a spirit. But when this individual Shinmyeong expands to reach the whole of the community, the deification is sublimated into a communal life force and vitality. That is, the religious Shinmyeong is transformed into the Shinparam of the communal life. From a perspective of Korean Minjung Gut means a shamanistic ritual in Korea, such as Daedong Gut, the village Gut. If this Shinmyeong of the Nanjangpan is a state where the Shinmyeong is so highly possessed in a communal level, it is understood simply as a religious phenomenon or a phenomenon which appears through rapport with a transcending world. But that means if the reality of the Minjung is omitted from the Shinmyeong of the Daedong Gut, this Shinmyeong will become a false, consumerist, illusionary Shinmyeong, a reactionary and abstract Shinmyeong, a Shinmyeong of opium. In reality, the Shinmyeong in the Minjung experiences shatters the existing system of values and order through the prayers and struggles of the Minjung and becomes the healing, reconciling, and transforming force both of individuals and society. The Shinmyeong is life, and its character is always collective and communal. This communal Shinmyeong sprung from unknown sources is life itself. That is the power of living a healed, reconciled, and transformed life, which confronts the power of being healed. It is also worth understanding Shinmyeong in connection with the concept of Ki, or Ki philosophy. The Korean people use the word Ki in their popular expression, like 기가 막힌다, sorry. The key is stifled, or 기가 죽다. The key has disappeared. The opposite expression is 기가 산다. The key is alive, or 기가 난다. The key has appeared. Other extended expressions of ki are usually related to a state of healing, reconciliation, and transformation from physical and spiritual wound and brokenness. The Han Puri of Minjung is, in this sense, nothing but the reintegration of the Han-ridden lives into Shinmyeong, ki, and life. That is the process of healing, reconciliation, and transformation. This Han Puri of the Minjung has eventually been expressed as a religious and cultural consciousness, both from historical and personal experience, becoming a basic motivation of healing and reconciliation, life and death, faith explosion, and self and social transformation. One aspect of Han can sometimes be sublimated into great artistic expressions, and the other could be looked as energy for a revolution or rebellion. In the Korean Minjung art, Shinmyeong as the power of critical transcendence does not appear only in the form of a bloodthirsty wrath. Rather, it possesses wit, composure, and a sharp, satirical presence, which are at once bittersweet and humorous. At the same time, revealed as firm and dry resistance and attack. More of the Shinmyeong also embraces all life, folding it into healing, reconciliation, and transformation. The life of Shinmyeong view of reality, all the artistic and revolutionary expressions of the Minjung can be understood as the product of their hand-read. That is the manifestation of their will aimed at a creative transformation for the state of Shinmyeong in a given concrete social situation. In the Minjung's sufferings and struggle in an earthly history, the way to participate in Missio Dei has been open to all people. Salvation history, or the history of God's hand-to-be, actually means the history of God's healing, reconciliation, and transformation of the earth. In a Trinitarian view, the harm of the Minjung can be interpreted as the lamentation of the Spirit, that is God's harm. It causes God's compassion to be explored and God's involvement in human history, which can be interpreted as God's act of dance, healing, and transformation of the harm-ridden people, that is God's hand. In other words, the Han experience of the Minjung has been revealing what we can call the nature of Missio Dei, that is God's lamentation for, God's suffering compassion with, and God's transformative action for the life of the poor, broken, and wounded with men. From a Trinitarian standpoint, the God Spirit lament for, the Father, Mother God has compassion for, and God the Son identifies with the Minjung and heal, reconcile, and transform the Minjung really. This model of God's hand-to-be, which is, in my view, reciprocal with the hand-to-be of the Minjung, can be compared with the shamanistic ritual process of Wood and the Hermetic circle of liberation theology as follows. If you look at the Missio Dei, Spirit, lamentation, Father, Mother, compassion, and Son, incarnation, and identification. But in Wood process, there is something wrong in the scale. But Han means speaking, listening. So when shaman heals the ill person, first of all, he or she should listen from this harm-ridden person. Speaking and listening from the harm-ridden reality, and then the shaman, the name it and judge it. He identified the cause of this illness. And then Han-to-be means healing, reconciling, and transform. In the liberation theology, it can be the hermeneutical circle of seeing, judging, acting, and transforming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Now we have a final presentation from Ingo. He would give a different perspective, but as a Christian, his ideas and interactions with these various healing processes.
From the Latin American perspective, I would like to define spirituality as the connectedness to God, to our human and nature roots, to each other, and moved by the Holy Spirit. Moved by the Holy Spirit, not as individual, but as a member of a community who is looking for life affirming, struggling and fighting against the powers who are causing death. This struggle in our Latin American spirituality is a community struggle, and it's celebrated in community in songs, rituals, and symbols. And these as Christians among many, many other religions, brothers and sisters, looking for the healing and transformation of the world. As a Christian, I will look to Jesus Christ and go, for example, to John chapter 9, where is a short but very clear revolution. Revolution of the understanding of sins, healing, grace, transformation by God. Jesus Christ was taught, as all other colleagues in the Jewish congregation, that the man or the lady who is sick because of his or her sins or of the parents. Therefore, meeting with a born blind, the disciples immediately are saying to Jesus Christ, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Isn't this terrible? That this guy who born blind was outcasted in the society because he was sick, impure. And secondly, he don't deserve the grace of God because he's paying his own sins. John 9. John 9. Jesus entered in dialogue and he healed his blind born man. He didn't ask him, never for money, never for faith. If you have a strong or weak faith. He didn't ask him for a strong faith, nothing. By grace, free of charge, a graça de graça, in Portuguese. This, Jesus Christ, is for me a model to cross boundaries of my own religion and of my own talking what I learned many times in wrong way in theology of the Lutheran profession. I learned with Jesus Christ here in Latin America and worldwide that Jesus Christ is the presence of God in order to heal and forgive the sins to a holistic healing by grace, through grace, free of charge. This is really the revolution. Secondly, Jesus only knew few people because the healing of some people for him are signs of the new coming reign of God. Luke 11, chapter 11, verse 20. He really made free people and the nature in order to the reign of God arise in our daily life. He gave us as disciples and followers through the Holy Spirit the gift of healing, of spirituality in the deep meaning that we are looking and struggling for healing and transformation of the world. Therefore, I would like to use the word dialogue with people of other faiths, but I would like to introduce the word diapraxis. We in Latin different faiths. We are simply living together. Some people don't believe it. We have representatives from Nigeria here, for example. I have the pleasure to be last year there. There's a big struggle among Muslims and Christians. And then I was sharing how we are living peacefully together here in Brazil. Working, you can testimony it. Yeah? So we are really looking with our brothers and sisters in Nigeria, in Indonesia, in Asia, in Latin America, how in the praxis together we can build a world of peace, justice, peaceful coexistence. I think we can do our first step if we are looking at Jesus Christ, for example, in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 7. In verse 26, a lady, not a Jew, a pagan, according to the Bible, the lady, Syrophoenician, comes and said, please cast out the evil demon of my daughter. And Jesus replies, verse 27, you are not my priority. The priority are the Jews. And he will not heal the daughter of this lady. But she entered in dialogue with Jesus. And not in a very friendly, but insisting, begging, please heal my sister, my daughter. And Jesus changed his own mind. This is the Bible. Jesus changed his own mind in the interfaith dialogue, in the interfaith diapraxis. And he will heal this lady. Peter, this big apostle, has his own conversion also, like myself, long time ago, and every day again, to see in the other God. Peter was called, according to Acts chapter 10, to go to a so-called heaven. Yeah, do you remember this? Acts 10, verses 1 to 33. To go to the non-Jew Cornelius in order to heal his son. Peter said no, but then he had a vision given by God. And this vision taught him, go to him. This is against the law of your religion to share and associate with a non-Jew. But I say, go. And though he was converted by God, to open his eyes, to deepen his own faith, and Cornelius to find the faith in Jesus Christ. My time is over. I'm sorry, but I would say, please let now start in dialogue and learn from each other this fantastic diversity which we have here now. Even some with different hairs, with different dresses. This is so enriching. Let we would like to learn from each other, from other faiths, in order to keep and open our own eyes that God is bigger than the walls of my bosom church. But I'm very happy to be a Muslim also.
Thank you very much. Now, gone a little over time, but what we would, the different speakers have actually given different perspectives from their own religions, and also Lee, of course, Dr. Lee is also a Christian, but he was giving from the shamanistic traditions of his understanding from the Korean perspective, and we have from the Umbanda tradition and also the Christian tradition. Now the question is, Dr. Dingo also gave an invitation for dialogue, for understanding, and the question is our understanding of healing. Does this exclude healing in other faiths? how do you deal with healing with other faiths? And then come back after 15 minutes, and then we will open the hall for discussion. Can you just hold on, please? Just before going into this, she will share after this. I think now we have heard enough. Now 15 minutes you discuss these questions. How do we, from our religious perspective, deal with healing from other healing traditions? And you can share.
There's a question of
Nowadays he's 10 years old and he couldn't have survived, yes, according to all the medical knowledge we have. Já te digo. According to the medical knowledge we have, he couldn't have survived, and he had a spiritual surgery, intrauterina, intrauterus, right? Still still in the womb of his mother, and today this child is 10 years old and is healthy.
Perfeito. Anda de bicicleta, colera, tudo isso, as radiografias estão todas aí nos exames. Então esse é um dos casos que eu vou apresentar hoje, que é o trabalho nosso lá em Felizes.
So this is one of the cases that were worked on at the temple, at the Umbanda temple, and I should like to show people about this because it's something that it's proof that there was a cure.
A comprovação que foi que, né, a gente trouxe mais porque eles haviam dando comprovar. É um caso raro, né? Então pode trazer um esclarecimento nesta área. Esse é do próprio punho, né? Vários casos, inclusive de médicos, né? Que não teve comunicação comigo. O canal lacrimal feito pelo astrólogo e a mãe dele conhecendo o pai e a mãe médica, né? Quando me comuniquei com ela, outro dia foi ver havia toda a aprovação de oftalmologistas que a criança teria que fazer uma cirurgia que chegasse um ano.
surgery. The child was only 30 days old.
This child or another child? It's about this case or another case?
Another case. This is another case already.
São vários, agora eu trouxe dois para apreciação, porque tem comprovação.
Esse caso também está aqui no okay, these are the two cases. The previous one, the 10-year-old boy, and then this other child with
Eu só não quero ultrapassar o tempo e sair, mas são casos interessantes para a discussão, a intervenção dos espíritos dos
So she's saying that, of course, we don't want to break the protocol or the sequence here of the activities, but it's part of pure healing in the spirituality. So if possible, she'd like to mention.
Yes, definitely. No. After this, we can definitely. Also in the Christian traditions, there is a lot of, especially now in the Pentecostal movement, there is a lot of healing experiences, and people are getting more and more involved in the churches. But same also in other religions in Asia, these experiences. My understanding.
Esse precisa.
Ok, so please, tem muitos líderes, muitas pessoas que estão cada vez mais entrando nessa questão, de várias religiões estão entrando nessa questão da pílula. Yes.
What I find it sometimes, I have to think myself, how do we discern the different spiritual movements, because there are positive movements. I would recognize yours as a positive movement.
Yes,
a positive.
Positive. Movimento positivo.
But how can you differentiate? Because there is so much of new movements. Some of them we have to discern what is the right and what is wrong.
Que há dos outros, o que é certo, o que é errado, quais deles, porque são muitos novos.
Sério, né? Uma pesquisa.
Research.
Yeah. So what I personally follow the Bible in the first chapter of 1 John, letter of John, 1 John chapter 1. John tries to describe God's, how God's presence is felt, and he mentions it as the word leading. The word gives rise to light, and also which gives rise to life. Sorry, the word gives rise to life, and the presence of life is manifested or proved by light, and the light is manifested by love. I mean, there are these three aspects.
Isso aí é a base da morte, né? A ordem luz, vida e amor, né?
So what I'm trying to say is I try to look at, if I'm studying or if I'm meeting people of a particular spiritual movement or a different religion and we are talking about healing, I try to look into the practices. It can also be a Christian who may not be manifesting these three. So I try to see this, is it promoting life, is it promoting love, is it promoting light? It's a simple checklist so that you don't reject everything that is not Christian, you accept everything that is so-called Christian, because there can also be a Christian hospital which is doing a lot of nonsense.
São situações a gente tem que saber aonde expor, com que grupo, para que não vire uma mera especulação, porque, né, alguns...
it's important to say that it's important that we choose the people we talk to about it and we interact with concerning all this, because it may become only speculation, only only, let's say, an empty talk or something like this. So it's important to be careful about this.
É uma maneira profana de se estar na mídia, não pode ser assim, é muito sério.
Saying that it's something, of course, this subject is very serious, and that some people just want to be in the media, just want to be, to find themselves important, and we have to be careful about this because this is a serious subject. It should be treated as such.
Healing spirituality, for me, relational dimension is very much important. Illness means, for me, is broken relationship. The healing means restoration of this broken relationship. Total dimension. It has personal, psychological, physical dimension, but also social dimension, and even ecological and universal dimension. So this total restoration of the relationship is important discernment point of what kind of spirit is it.
A eterna busca da cura espiritual.
The eternal search for spiritual healing.
Por isso, trazer a nível de discussão, de apoio, de trocas, como evento como este, é muito importante.
That's why it's so important to bring to a level of discussion and exchange of ideas events like this one that we are having is so important because of this interaction.
Novos caminhos estão sendo traçados, abertos.
New pathways are being opened.
What does this
humbleness, faith, charity.
faith?
Faith.
Once again,
Humility.
Humbleness, humility, yes.
Faith.
And charity.
charity.
Yes.
Hoje no Brasil, a Umbanda está com faculdade em São Paulo. Estivemos fazendo uma série de encontros para estudar com outros países, fazer intercâmbios nesses assuntos.
Yes. Nowadays we have Umbanda University here in Brazil, and there have been discussions in order to see how we can exchange ideas with other countries, other religions, to an interfaith dialogue, really. So it's been discussed in this Umbanda University here in Brazil.
O pessoal quer continuar? Que coisa boa.
That is insulting. And I think that the same thing will happen in Korea. And has been. I really do.
of healing in her experience. So, like you have been sharing, she also wanted to share.
O que eu vou relatar agora se passou há 10 anos atrás.
What I'm going to tell now happened 10 years ago.
Casal, empresário de São Leopoldo,
A couple from São Leopoldo, they were business people
de tradição católica,
from Catholic background.
viu numa situação muito dolorosa
They had a very painful moment in their lives.
e nos procurou,
And they came to us,
mesmo não acreditando que espíritos pudessem interceder através de médicos.
even not believing that spirits could help people through the mediums.
Então, de próprio punho, o que vai ser relatado, os exames, né, e está devidamente documentado.
What is going to be reported now was handwritten here, so simply written, and also there are the medical tests to prove this, so everything is well documented.
E este depoimento é de acordo com a visão da mãe e não realmente do que aconteceu durante o período que ela foi atendida.
This report is based on the mother's view of what happened, and not exactly of some facts, but her point of view of what happened.
Tudo começou quando resolvemos ter o nosso segundo filho.
Everything started when we decided to have our second child.
A gravidez estava indo normalmente,
The pregnancy was going well,
mas com 8 meses e meio,
but at 8.5 months of pregnancy,
o médico resolveu fazer uma última ecografia para ver como o bebê estava.
the doctor decided to have one last ecography to see how the baby was.
Ainda lembro do olhar apreensivo do Dr. Breno.
I still remember the worried look of Dr. Ben.
Percebi que ele não falava nada
I noticed he didn't speak anything,
e resolvi perguntar o que estava acontecendo.
and I decided to ask what was happening.
De-
Summarize, because what happens is
Yeah.
the problem is
Yes.
they will have also
Com isto,
With this,
procuraram então uma ajuda espiritual,
they looked for a spiritual help,
justamente porque a criança, segundo o laudo médico
because the child, according to the medical report
e todos os exames,
and all the tests,
era portadora de hidrocefalia,
had a hydroencephaly,
cisto no cérebro,
a cyst in the brain,
má formação cerebral em todos os sentidos, impossível sobrevivência ou então sobrevivência vegetativa.
malformation of the brain in several ways, so it was impossible to survive, at least in a healthy way.
Então, ao procurar, solicitamos que estivesse pronta a fazer uma intervenção para o pelo astral com um dos espíritos que trabalham conosco há mais de 30 anos.
So we decided to have an intervention, the help with one of the spirits, this incarnate spirits who worked with them for more than 30 years.
E aconteceu a cirurgia pelo astral, a criança nasceu no mesmo dia, hoje está com 10 anos, né, e é uma criança perfeitamente normal. Os laudos médicos e as tomografias estão para serem observadas e o cérebro da criança tem lacunas, o tumor existe e ele não tem absolutamente nada que possa vir dizer que esta criança teve qualquer tipo de problema no útero. Né?
Nowadays, the child is 10 years old, and the tests don't show any evidence that there was a problem before. The child is totally healthy.
Thank you.
Agora estamos à disposição.
Obrigado, senhor.
So I think it's time now, we have around 17, 18 minutes. For about 10 minutes, we will take some comments, questions from your group.
Well, our friend here has a very interesting question.
I have a question to faculty. I'm Korean. First, I believe thanks to police, where organized article about Palm and stuff like that. There was happened Korean war in Korea, as you guys know. So there are so many poor because of the war. And then Japan conquered Korea. So there are so many offers in Korea. So I can understand this situation, especially the feeling of harm, because I'm standing between my parents' theory and the children's theory. So I can feel the harm, because I always saw my parents' harm. They sad, they cry, they feel sad, they stood in trouble, in hardship. But my question is, Korean society is changing, especially economic situation, social situation. My focus is youngsters. I think in my think they don't have a feeling of harm. They just like to play soccer, sing songs, and listen to music. So my question is that this theory is able to access to youngsters. How can we kill their pain as a religious leader, especially in the church? My question is to you, because I'm still struggling with this problem.
Maybe you can respond. It's a very special, I'm not expecting more questions.
I think I answer this question two ways. First of all, one of my main purpose of this presentation is to provide you kind of Korean paradigmatic understanding of healing and spirituality, referring the Korean shamanism. So you can actually apply this paradigm into other contexts. That's one of my purposes. And second one, of course, there are different levels of harm experience between generations. But this paradigm can be also adopted into the young generation. You know the Shinparam, you know the Ki, you know that the Nanjangtan. This kind of things can be a healing opportunity and place for those marginalized and alienated young people. So still that kind of romantic paradigm is still there. But levels and types of harm experience of Korean people among generations are different.
We were discussing here in our group, there was some experience from Umbanda and some from Christianity too. And we came to somehow to a point which in both religions can have a lot of frustration when people expect healing and doesn't come. And in both religions also people can expect healing and sometimes come. And then we were pointing out to the fact that anything that comes from God has to lift up human dignity and has to produce life. If it happens differently, we have to question ourselves. Is this from God? Or is it from somewhere else? Or just human? And a lot of this grace we have as far as disease and disabling people, you know, is produced by human beings. Here, very near here, we have a lot of people that produce tobacco and they use pesticides. A lot of children are born without brains because of that. It's nothing to do with God. It has with human greed, you know, and human economics and ignorance too.
I think that's a very fair reflection, and I don't think it's a comment.
Yes.
Thanks for that very critical input, because it is also sort of thinking that in my own experience also it has been a big question, how do we actually discern? Because I come from Asia and I come from Malaysia and spent many years in India. How do you actually discern between good and bad? So in the sense, it doesn't mean if something comes from a different religion, it has to be necessarily bad or good, or just because it's coming from a Christian hospital doesn't mean that it is always good. So, I mean, I personally also in my was sharing that I follow the description of God in 1 John 1, where God is described as light, love, and life. So if there's a spirituality that is actually from God, it has to reflect these characteristics: love, promoting life, and dispelling ignorance as light. So it's one thing that because we are faced with this challenge quite a bit.
We were a group of 5 Christians, and I wonder if it's significant that we did not actually get on talking about boosters. But then again, in the New Testament, we are asked to discern, to test spirits to see whether they are good, whether they are bad. And also our Lutheran friends talk about the man born blind. It was liberating to talk of that as a spiritual thing, because it takes you away from having to blame, having to have guilt. We nearly got into a conversation about defining an agreed definition of healing. We probably wouldn't have got very much further if we'd done that, but we had different experiences from different contexts. We also discussed whether justice is essential to healing, and the social dimension of it as well. Finally, in this little summary, there is the question of, do you want to be healed? That if you accept God's free gift of a change of life, whether it's physical, spiritual, mental, then you will be expected to do something with it. Or are you just going to say, no, I prefer not to be healed?
There were 6 of us in the group, and I think, correct me if I'm not summarizing, but one of the things we did sort of generally come to consensus on is that there's not such a separation between different types of healing. That is all different spectrums of God's ability to heal. We had one person talk about ancestral healing, another person talk about herbal healing, and we sort of generally agreed that healing is a continuum, and that you access it from different places depending on your context, your culture, but it's all part of God's ability to heal. And then there were also some expressions of concern about whether when we access different modalities as Christians, are we doing sort of Baal worship or that kind of thing? And we talked a little bit about how we might see that a little differently. And then one of the last things that a comment that was made is that there's a difference between a healing and a cure, and that many times God heals, and that healing is total, mind, body, and spirit, and that doesn't always mean that you are cured, but you can be healed. So that was one of that's more or less the summary of it.
Just to add one more dimension to kind of piggyback on the last two. Just to add one more dimension that piggybacks on the last two. In our group, more to, especially as Christians, when we think of the end of our physical life here, and we are going to leave and we're going to be with God forever and have everlasting life. I mean, that is joy, that is happiness, that is healing. But we spend so much time trying to deny death and deny what that means, and so we just thinking about death as healing.
Just a short observation. In the New Testament, when the apostles and the Christians are healing, they're not doing that on the basis of some kind of mentality. They're doing it in one name, in the name of Jesus Christ.
Deve ser curado num nome, no nome de Jesus Cristo.
Spirituality.
Espiritualidade.
With the New Testament, it is a name, an authority. This is of course the point, in the sense when we are living in a different multicultural, and it is definitely a challenge for us because our Christian perspective is actually in the name of Jesus. But when we are encountering different religions or different spiritual groups exercising their faith to heal, and then how do we actually deal with this? Because either is it all not from God, or from God is something that we perceive according to our belief, and we need to dialogue and understand. It's a self-understanding and also understanding in our own context. Because what's more thoughts? I mean, it's a very pertinent issue that you raised.
What would you, a short, I come to Switzerland, a group of 5, 6 persons from America to Switzerland. 1, 2, 3 short messages from our group. I visited 4 days ago a mass production of healing in the so-called Igreja
Universal Church of God. Igreja Universal do Reino de Deus.
Brazilian church. I would at once like to say no to this. Healing is not a mass production, but I would face it's a process of speaking eye to eye between 2 or 3 people. That's maybe extreme, but why not? And the other is I am working together with handicapped people. Handicapped people who are not healed, who will not be healed, but they giving me joy, giving me fulfillment and so on. Why not looking Christianity and in society through the glass of handicapped people? They show me praise of God also.
comment on some of these observations?
Two things. First of all, the most important understanding of healing and spirituality for me is that the information is fundamental interconnectedness.
Fundamental?
Fundamental interconnectedness of the web life. So this is ecological way of thinking of reality. Yeah, is the most important way of healing our brokenness and woundedness. The second thing, as you mentioned, idolization and manipulation of healing, any kind of healing instruments process, we need to otherwise it will become oppressive instruments, kill our life.
Can I say one more thing that came to me? The Eastern Orthodox view of the cross, right, is that Jesus came to bring healing to people. And Westerners are so focused on guilt and redemption that I wonder if the idea of being wounded people who need healing would connect holistically to something you're trying to propose.
It depends on the causes of illness. It depends on the causes of illness. You know, sometimes those people who are ill, broken heart, they can be healed. Those people who experience healing themselves, they can be healed or reconciled. This mutuality between those people who are ill and those who are healed, we need also.
That's another good aspect.
This is the, also connecting up with that is also how we have this peer groups of cancer support groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, people have gone and actually experienced suffering and death. They are much wiser than even healthier people because they have realized the vulnerability and they are able to help and support even more. So the wounded healer concept comes very big.
Right. I want to add one more thing. The thing we've avoided here is mental illness. And I think it's the same physical and emotional illness that's sometimes related to mental. And that is that sometimes we can promote healing and God heals, and sometimes we cannot do it. And the question is then, we have a Christian group in Seattle. How do you live with the people that apparently cannot be healed by any means? And like
These are just very big areas. In fact, we have a Mundial on mental health. We have a Mundial on peace, on congregation, and power of healing in the congregation in the next few days. We will definitely find opportunity to.
And I would agree with you that I cannot find in the Bible the theology of prosperity. For me, the theology of cross, because it is my weakness, in my favor. If I am down, then I will feel the power of Jesus Christ. And we can learn that all of us are handicapped. Me too. Yes, I am handicapped. And in my handicappedness, I can recognize the power of Jesus Christ. But
those of us that have experienced fullness rather than come down from somewhere are no longer interested in the cross as the primary symbol. We're going the other direction. We have to deal with our crosses, but then most of them were imposed.
not with our process, but with the cross of Jesus Christ.
Oh, here we go.
This is the importance of having to listen to other faiths. Because I am, like for example, the pursuit of happiness, and also in the Orthodox tradition of of focusing on the resurrection and the victory in Jesus, as a Christian itself. So, and it's a balance. I mean, I'm not saying that, and we should not think that we have all the answers. The importance that we have to join together and listen and dialogue and then find the
Theology evolves depending on where you are and what different theology evolves depending on where you are and what your context is in life. If you're going through a very difficult period with a lot of stuff, your theology is going to be different than when everything's okay and so I think that that's very important to keep in mind as well.
So I would encourage you to attend the other churros and healing. These are some different people from different perspectives. I would be involved with it. And I would also just tell you that there is a good publication that has just come out on genetics, agriculture, and human life. And this is by a group of people dealing with ethics in the WCC, which are dealing with genetics and other issues. There are some copies here, and my friend told me to share.
I was one of the people on the team that put this together. There will be another winter out on Tuesday morning on bioethics. There are some extra, I've only bought a few copies, I don't know how many people want. There are some extra copies up at 813 in the box. So just go back of the room and if you want to grab some, grab them from the box at 813. One copy left here.
I especially want to thank all the resource persons, especially Flores,